And yeah, you mentioned the playoffs, and I want to start with it really jumps out to me as what I think is probably the biggest first round playoff matchup, Minnesota and LA. I feel like this is a big moment. And I talked to you recently on one of our sessions about how I feel about Anthony Edwards, and the clock is ticking in Minnesota, in my opinion. It's only a matter of time before, it's just considered that he might want to get out of there, or they might want to make some changes if they don't see more success soon with him as their leading superstar. I just see the matchup as so fascinating. It's a chance for Anthony Edwards to do something pretty special, to beat Luka and LeBron in a first round playoff series. That in itself would be a pretty major statement. So I think the Lakers they're just playing fun. They just got Luka. There's not much. I mean, there's expectations because it's the Lakers, and now that you think they could make a run, there's some pressure and expectation there. But I just think the Luka experiment, they just got him. I think they're just still riding on vibes. But I just feel like either way, this could be, if the Lakers do great and put away the Timberwolves, that's a big story for the Lakers, just for their progress. It's a big story for the Timberwolves and their regression. If the Timberwolves move on, that's a big story. I just feel like it's more important for the Timberwolves to get this series.
I'll add this. I think that the I have felt this way since the beginning of the season. I felt that the Clippers were the better team in Los Angeles, just from continuity. I think obviously when you have the Lakers and you have the star power that is LeBron and Luka Doncic, and also in head coach JJ Redick, you pause and you say, "Wow, this is a team that has the chance to go the distance." I still have some questions about the center position. I thought that Alex Len at first was going to be able to solve the problem that was lacking, which is Anthony Davis. And now they're very much a guard and point guard, shooting guard, small forward oriented team. I think for the Los Angeles Lakers specifically, the person that we're not talking about that I think I'd expect to have a big series is Rui Hachimura, who they got from the Washington Wizards a couple of years ago. But if you're keeping it Minnesota Timberwolves, um, I think that for the Timberwolves, it would be on their onus to come away with a victory. Mike Conley Jr. has seen many of playoff series in his career. He's also on that team, but I think it's going to come down to coaching. There's more experience on the Timberwolves side of coaching, but I feel like JJ Redick, who I spent some time with during the season, wrote a feature on him, and some of his coaching experience and coaching influences over the years have definitely paid dividends. Usually, point guards transition well into good coaches. You've seen it with Jason Kidd. We've seen it with Avery Johnson and other people, but in this case, JJ Redick, a two guard by trade, has done a lot on the fly and has been successful in the regular season. But as you and I both know, the playoffs is a brand new game, and it's going to be interesting to see how Minnesota can take it. But I'll be honest with you, last season you saw flashes of for the Timberwolves of brilliance for that team. Of course, ultimately losing to the Dallas Mavericks, who would be eventual Western Conference champions, and go on to the finals and lose to Boston Celtics. But yeah, I'd like to see the Timberwolves redeem themselves. I'd like the Timberwolves to have some bragging rights in that trade for Karl Anthony Towns. I always felt that that trade benefited Minnesota more than it benefited the New York Knicks. And the New York Knicks, of course, have a first round matchup against the Detroit Pistons. But I'm glad to see the ability or the alacrity that both Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards have with each other and their responsibilities, and also seeing Julius Randle and Mike Conley Jr. Bounce off the ball from each other, and there's no fighting over who can control the offense. So I do like Minnesota as a team. It'll be interesting to see how they match up against the Los Angeles Lakers in round one.
Well, the Lakers are interesting because I mean it's obviously all built around Luka and LeBron, but you mentioned Rui. I think he's going to be huge for that matchup because I think you need your like other athletic younger wings because Minnesota's younger. I think the Lakers are pretty long, and you're right. They're like they've got big guards, and they've got their wings. They've got big wings too. Um, So I think that matchup on the wing with like Minnesota's wings versus the Lakers wings is going to be big. Obviously, the star matchup between Ant and then Luca and LeBron on the other side. You mentioned JJ's coaching. One thing that I've been saying to people ever since JJ got the job, and as we've seen the kind of coaching that he's been doing, like one thing that really had me encouraged about JJ Redick being a head coach, and I didn't see too many people really hit on this specific aspect of it. Even though he was coming out of the podcasting world, we all saw what he was doing with his podcast. He wasn't just giving NBA takes and having debates about top 5 and top 10. He was, I mean, right before he finished podcasting, he literally started a new podcast with LeBron that was centered around sets and plays, not just sets and plays, but what teams run, what teams in the league do, trends that are
Hmm.
happening with offense, with defense, with coverages, with small ball, all kinds of things. I mean, the Mind the Game pod was built around that theme. And even before then,
Hmm.
he's talking to Joe Mazzulla. He's having coaches on his podcast to talk specifically about scheme, cadence, what you're running, JJ was really low key using his podcast to study the league and what teams were doing, what coaches were
And
doing, and I think that clearly benefited him coming into that position.
Steve Nash is doing the same thing now with LeBron.
Well, I mean, I find that interesting because he had his crack at it before, and now people are joking that this is Nash's unofficial, like, second crack at trying to get another
Hmm.
job. And I mean, what do you think? Isn't it a little funny that that podcast kind of becomes that even the Steve Nash pick for that was even made it even more interesting to me because I'm like, he had a head coaching stint before, it didn't work out. Does this just now become the new thing where you just sit a guy across from LeBron just to show that they still have a strong basketball mind and maybe they get a job from it?
Yeah, this is kind of his version of "you're fired" or "you're hired"
Mm.
in comparison to things that are going on outside of the realm of sports. I won't put name to it, but if you're smart, you know what I'm talking about. So, it's interesting you bring that up about JJ Redick specifically. I caught up with JJ back in February, and I wanted to kind of bring some context to just his coaching. He told me back in February that there have been coaches in his life who have given him inspiration, and he takes it back to his days with Irving with the Roanoke Jaguars, an AAU team. He also talked about his relationship with Boo Williams, who you know well. He coached Allen Iverson and others from the great state of Virginia, as well as Chris Morris. He said he's always respected the role of coaching. He's had the privilege of playing for one of the greatest coaches in any sport in Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, during his time at Duke. And then he went on to talk about some of the other coaches in the NBA, including Stan Van Gundy, who he had as his coach in Orlando with the Magic, as well as Doc Rivers in Orlando, and of course Brett Brown during his time in Philadelphia as a member of the 76ers. And he said all three of those guys were great influence. And he said with each of them, he took bits and pieces for his own philosophy, daily messaging. But honestly, coming into this role, it's a whole new game. And he went on to say, you got to be yourself, but you also got to stay open minded. It's been a ride. And honestly, the only thing that caught me off guard was the Palisades fire. Of course, JJ Redick was one of the people who lost his home in the Palisade fire earlier this year in the Los Angeles area. And even in spite of that, he's still been consistent, diligent, and it helps when you have the game's best player today, and LeBron James is uh, one of your um, one of your key pieces on that team. So I think it's a lot of learning on the job, and I also just think that the coaching position in the NBA is a lot different now. A lot of front offices want guys who have locker room experience and aren't that far removed from the game. Even in television, you're seeing it. Marcus Morris on ESPN recently talking about the Memphis Grizzlies and referring to YNs. We can't even use that word anymore because now we know what that means. Those who didn't know, now they know. It's cover is blown. But that being said, the young nephews and the old Unc and him, those type of conversations and messaging in locker rooms, is appreciated. So Steve Nash got his first crack at it with the Brooklyn Nets. It didn't go as he thought it would, and with James and Kyrie and Kevin, and he's going back into think tank, and he's doing that pod with LeBron, and you saw JJ Redick as the precursor to that. So it'll be interesting to see how that all fares out with Nash, and you're seeing the fruits of the podcast labor with JJ Redick, and now as the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers.
I mean, do you agree that there's like say the Lakers lose this first round series, there's really no pressure there, right? Like I don't think there's any pressure for them to do it this year. Like I think they're just playing with house money.
I think the Lakers are preparing for life after LeBron and enjoying LeBron while he's there. And it'll be interesting to see what the Lakers can get in the offseason as far as free agent targets and or trades. And it'll be as far as Nico goes, if the Lakers were to lose in the first round, I mean, the perception is the perception. Maybe for his morale, yeah, but um, I still think that the Dallas Mavericks have some additional pieces that they need to get to accommodate that organization. And so it's less to do with Nico, it's more to do with the Lakers, and less to do with the Lakers and more to do with Nico. They're their own separate entity.